order, Ms. Dean.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing us this important hearing, and thanks for recognizing me now. I also want to thank our testifiers, particularly the growers and independent retailers who take such pride in their work, feeding our country, and of course, providing terrific jobs and choice along the way. We all know that we're in the midst of a global pandemic and an economic recovery. The last thing that Americans need to worry about is putting food on their table. I represent suburban Philadelphia, Montgomery, and Berks counties in Pennsylvania. In my district, the average price of food went up about 1.6% between 2020 and 2021. Mr. Needler, I was reminded when you said that one of my very first jobs was as a cashier and bagger at an independent grocery store when I was in college. Americans are paying higher prices for groceries. With higher prices, everyday Americans face difficulty. Grocery stores, such as yours, are also having trouble keeping their shelves stocked. In my district, we enjoy some terrific smaller, mid-size, independent retail grocery stores like O'Neill's and Delilah and Dean. It's no relation to me, George's Market and others. They provide jobs, they provide choice. They stimulate our economy. What challenges do independent grocers like these have in stocking their shelves and continuing to grow our economy and feed America?
Thank you very much for your question. The crux of my position today is that if we could try to, Mr. Mann talks about the short-term impact on Robinson Patman, but I think that you need to look at it almost like a zero-sum game. There isn't, if you push down on one side of a waterbed and the other side goes up, it doesn't necessarily mean that because it was rising on one side doesn't mean there's more water in the bed. It's just shifting. So if you have market power in a few that pushes the cost to the rest, it's a zero sum, but it makes it unfair advantage for the long run. And so the goal I think that we're trying to have is a very stable supply chain in terms of our pricing and a fair supply chain. So if what challenge we would be facing is as costs go up throughout the entire chain, from producers to transportation, we can point to a lot of things, and the gentlemen have already done a great job of articulating that. Labor, freight, all very real costs that we're experiencing. But the biggest players are able to resist that. That's good in the short term. But the suppliers have to pass that on. They have to pass that on, and the only people that they'll be able to negotiate, and really we don't have a choice, is the small guy like myself, and we have to take the higher prices. So actually, was in a supplier meeting the other day. They said we're going to pass this on, and we'll keep an eye on whether the competition moves their retail or not. And if they don't, we'll come back to you. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with that. How do I explain that to my customer? So that's a very real example. And I can tell you lots of real-time examples of where, I think we've got economists looking at big data, metadata, perhaps. I can tell you very real examples where I just need people to go to work and come to work. We've experienced an unprecedented turnover, over 100% turnover during this last year. Never heard of anything like that. Folks are not interested in going to work, and that if we could get people back to work faster, that would certainly start helping.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Maxwell, you discussed the concentration of America's food supply and agricultural market. Can you explain how this makes supply chains brittle and unable to withstand the shock of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, thank you for the question. With growth and expansion and add vertical integration, our supply chains now are stretched not only nationally, but globally, with one dominant firm or three dominant firms controlling that supply chain. When there's a disruption in the middle, one of the links breaks, then it affects or impacts a larger community. Whereas if we would focus on local and regional food systems, which have shorter chains and links, then a disruption or a break in a link would have less impact on great numbers of people. It would have impact on fewer numbers of people. So building resiliency into the food system should be a priority of the Congress, and looking at local regional systems to do that. And Mr. Needler's stores are very important in that system. He has a yellow bird food shed, I believe, in Ohio that is a tremendous service during the pandemic. Not time to talk about it here, but someone ought to talk to Mr. Needler or the friends we have out in Ohio, how important that is.
And how all of these workers are frontline workers and how they've served us during this pandemic. Thank you. My time has expired. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. I now